This shows the village of Middle Amana with a nice potato field in the foreground, the smokestack at the Middle Amana Woolen Mill, which was built in about 1888, if I remember right, and of course the village there on top of the hill. Paul Hare did a map of Middle Amana in about 1942, and I'm not sure exactly what motivated him to do it, but it's got a lot of information on it. He mapped out every single building in Middle, coded it to whether it was brick or frame or sandstone, and put down the date of construction and who lived in the house. So this is a local person making an attempt to define the community that they lived in. And then in the 1920s, Amana people found another way to celebrate their community. For many, many years, it had been forbidden to do any kind of artwork or photography. I always think that this is really funny because, as we know, there's something like 7,000 images in the collection of the Heritage Society, so somebody was taking pictures. But photography was a no-no, and also doing representational art. The maps, however, didn't count because they were useful. They were a way of showing the land, the property boundaries, and were useful probably in planning. We think these maps were being drawn in the 1860s, just before some of the leading elders left Ebenezer to come to Iowa, and so consequently this was their way of kind of getting updates back from the field as to how things were going. Well, anyway, this is a series of pictures here. Some of you might recognize some of these paintings very well that show Carl Flick's view of Amana, because by the 1920s, those restrictions on art had fallen away, and we actually had fine artists working in the colonies. This is John Noy's painting of the building we're in right now, and Ruth Schmieder's picture of Middle Amana. We can skip that. Not because it's no, not because it's Ruth Schmieder. It's Middle Amana. I've always been a big fan of her work, and I love this picture because, of course, it has the mill race in the front, and it shows the village on the hill. Middle Amana really did look a little bit like a miniature Rhine Valley in the early days when all those terraces were in place and were covered with grapevines. It was very, very attractive. By the 1960s, you're going to see early tourism maps like this, where Amana people are kind of defining their property for the tourists and celebrating features that they think will be of interest to visitors to the colonies. I think this map was drawn in connection with the Colony Inn, because Colony Inn is pictured down here at the bottom. But you can see different businesses listed on here. And of course, the mill race, as Lanny mentioned, is a feature that is included on this map. But then this comes, and this I think truly is the important milestone in Amana map making, Amana cartography. It's kind of the high point. So you've got Joseph Prestole defining the community in visual ways. You've got Wilhelm Noy drawing quick maps that can be sent back to Germany and New York, and Friedrich Jeck drawing maps to send back to New York so people know what's going on here. But this is truly a map that preserves history. This is the Unser Hoffmann for Unser Heimat map, the UHUH map. It dates to 1982. And the UHUH, of course, was a prominent youth organization in the Amanas that really wanted to preserve the local heritage and culture. Some of you know quite a bit about them, of course. The Tiefen Kellerkinder came out of that organization, as did, I believe, the Volksmarch, among other good things. And one night at a party, the idea was hatched that they're non-drinking parties, of course. They think of it as more like a Bible study. Anyway, at a gathering, someone hatched the idea of actually preserving some of the place names that had been attached to different fields and features in Amana through the years. And they actually got out a map, and they had people from representative older people from different villages come and identify features. And it's actually very, very accurate. It was drawn by a student at Drake University who was a friend of Carol Shearer Zuber's. Unfortunately, nobody seems to remember that person's name, but he or she drew this map, and then just a very simple type font, they put the names of the different places on it. And so, you know, the Katsapoho and Johnson's Field and all that are identified by name here. And, you know, every field, their Grants Fields and so on, every field had a name in Amana. And what I think is really funny is that if you look at the very early property maps, some of this early settlers' names still survive in the field names today. Johnson's Field is Rollo Johnson, who later went on and founded the town of Tiffin, by the way. So we have a connection there. And Fox's Field is a man by the name of Alonzo Fox, owned that. His daughter, incidentally, went on to marry a Speaker of the House of Representatives. So she went up in the world. So anyway, so those names are preserved, and so this kind of gives us kind of our cultural heritage, preserved by probably in the nick of time by some forward-thinking young people in the early 1980s. So that brings us to the end. I just want to make the point, it's been kind of a slideshow of maps and pictures. I hope you've enjoyed seeing some of these views of Amana past. I've sure enjoyed collecting them. If anybody knows of any other early, like watercolors or maps or drawings that are hanging on Opa or Oma's wall or whatnot, please do let me know. I'd love to be able to photograph them and include them in the future. But I think it's interesting that in a community that did not value the visual arts, we have such a rich legacy of representing the land that is so important to all of us in the means of maps and visual art. Thank you very much.